So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be continuing with a series of going through some big mark questions taken from some GCSE past exam higher questions. Now as always there'll be a copy of the questions for you to download and have an attempt at before watching this video and go through the answers, and I'll also include the mark scheme just because there are multiple ways in which you can get the correct answer, so you can see and compare that if your method differs from the one I go through in this video, whether you still get the marks for it. So before we get started, let's just have a quick look at what topic each question refers to. Now, as you can see from the list, there are quite a lot of standalone topics in each of the questions. However, there is a new one that I've spotted that I've not seen in any of the questions previously done in the series of videos, which is functions looking at domain and range. So it may be something that you may have covered in class, but you may not have. It may be just a case of the vocabulary that was being used in the question that kind of disturbs you from knowing what to do. So let's get started on these questions. Now, a little reminder that if you've not had or do not have the opportunity to print out off any of these questions, have an attempt at before as we go through the answer, then all you need to do is just simply pause the video and then have an attempt at the question and then unpause and as we go through the answer. So looking at question 1, it says here is a formula. It says f equals x over y. It says x increases by 25% and y decreases by 20%. Work out the percentage increase in f. So for this, what we need to do is we first of all need to establish, using decimal multipliers, how do we increase something by 25%? Well, for that, what we need to do is we need to multiply by 1.25. So that's going to be 1.25x. Then how do we decrease something by 20%? Well, we multiply it by 0.8. So that's going to be 0.80y. And then for this, what we need to do is we then need to work out what's the decimal equivalent of 1.25 over 0.8. So for this is going to be equal to 125 over 80. And you could write the x and the y, although it's going to be completely and utterly optional whether you write that. But then working this out, converting it as a decimal, is going to be 1.5625. Now that as a percentage increase refers to 56.25%, and there is our final answer. Moving on to question 2, it says that cylinder A has a radius of 2 centimeters and contains water to a height of 10 centimeters. Cylinder B has a radius of 5 centimeters and is empty. And the question is asking us first for part A, show that the volume of the water in cylinder A, that's just gone off the screen, is 40 pi. So for this, what we need to do is basically look at the volume of a cylinder. Now the volume of a cylinder is the cross-sectional area, which is pi r squared, and then we multiply that by the height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this formula for this, for cylinder A with the water, where r equals 2 and h equals 10, and that's going to equal pi times 2 squared times 10, which is 4 times 10 times pi, which is 40 pi, which is what they wanted me to show. Then for B, it says some of the water is poured from cylinder A into cylinder B, and the height h of the water in each cylinder is now the same. Work out the height of, or work out h. So for this, if we look at cylinder A and we work out the volume in regards to h, then we know that V equals pi times 2 squared times h. We don't know what h is, so that's going to be 4 pi h. And if we do the same for B, where here the radius is 5, so here the volume is going to be pi times 5 squared, and we don't know what h is, so that's going to be 25 pi h. So then for this, what we then need to do is then work out the combined volume. So the combined volume is going to be 4 pi h plus 25 pi h, which equals 29 pi h. Now for this, what we need to do is we need to make this equal to 40 pi, because that's the amount of water. So here what we've then got to do is, well, this is the volume of water, and this is the combined volume with height h being the same of both. So what we've then got is 29 pi h equals 40 pi. Then from this we can then cancel the pi's, as both sides have got pi, and then here what we then do is we take the 29 over to the other side, so I've got h equals 40 over 29, and if I convert that as a decimal I get 1.38, and that's in centimeters, and that's been rounded to 2 decimal places, and there is my answer. Moving on to question 3, it says the graph of y equals f of x is a straight line, which is really important. The domain of f of x is 1 to 5 inclusive of those numbers, and the range of f of x is 3 to 11 inclusive of those values. And the question is asking us to work out a possible expression for f of x. Now obviously, as there's one possible expression, there's going to be multiple answers you can have, but I would say the most common answer is what I'm going to go through. Now the domain is basically the x value. So if you imagine this is x and this is y. Now because we know it's a straight line, we know that the function is just going to have a single x. It's not going to have anything squared or be written as a reciprocal. So here I've got my table of values, and I've got the values of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my f of x values, or if I want to call it y, and it says that the lowest value of y is 3, so I'm going to put that there, and the highest value is 11. So what I now need to do is, looking at a linear sequence or a linear function, I need to work out what these missing numbers are. Now here, if we do 11 take away 3, which is 8, divided by 4, we get values of 2. So that means that this is going to be going up in 2, so that's going to be 5, 7 and 9. Then from this, what I now need to do is to work out the function of this. So treat this as like a sequence question where I've got the nth term. So here the difference is plus 2. So I'm going to have 2n. And then how do I get from 2 to 3? Well, I add 1. So in turning this into a function, it's just simply going to be 2x plus 1. Now there are many other answers available, so all you need to do, if you're not getting this but you want to check you got the right answers, just check the mark scheme on the attached document and you can see whether your answer would give you the 4 marks. Now moving on to question 4, it says ABC are points on the circumference of a circle. BC is the diameter, BCP is a straight line, AP is a tangent to the circle, and PC equals CA. And the question is asking us to work out the value of CPA marked X on the diagram. So let's have a look first at looking at circle theorems, which is what this question is going to be using, and see if we can fill out any of the missing angles that have not been marked to try and possibly work out what X is. Now we can see that CPA, the triangle of that, is an isosceles triangle. So if that angle there is X, this angle here is also going to be X as well. Let me just write isosceles for that, even though I don't need to, but if it did ask me, I can then work that out. Then I can then know that this angle here is going to be a right angle because I've got the CP is the diameter, which is the side of the triangle, so the opposite angle is going to be 90 degrees. Then if I just get rid of that line, so that's going to be 90. And I also know that this angle here is also going to be X because of the alternate segment theorem. And let me just write here semicircle. So from this I can then work out what angle this is going to be. Let me use a different color. Let's go for this one here. So this angle here is going to be 180. Oh, don't know if I can rewrite that 180. So I've got 180 minus X minus 90, which gives me an answer of 90 minus X. Then I can then work out what angle this is going to be, and we're going to have colours. Let's go for purple. So this angle here, which is going to be 180 minus 2x. Now from this, what I then know is that these two angles need to add up to 180 because it's a straight line. So here what I've got is I've got 180 minus 2x plus 90 minus x, and that all equals 180. And then just getting rid of the bracket, I get 180 minus 2x plus 90 minus x equals 180. So I get 270 minus 3x equals 180. So then take the 3x over, I get 270 equals 180 plus 3x. Take the 180 over and I end up with 90 equals 3x. So x equals 30 degrees, and there is my final answer. Now moving on to question 5, it says that a lorry and a car complete the same 240-mile journey without stopping. The average speed of the car is x miles per hour. The average speed of the lorry is 12 miles per hour slower than the car. The lorry takes 1 hour longer than the car. Use an algebraic method to work out the average speed of the car. So first of all, let's have a look at, well, we've got a feeling that this is going to be a time distance speed graph. So let's look at the car. And let's try and write out the information that we know. Now we know that the distance is 240, because that's mentioned here. Now the speed of the car is x, and the time of the car we're just going to call t. Then looking at the lorry, now again the distance of that is 240. The speed is 12 miles an hour slower, so that's going to be x minus 12. And the time is 1 hour longer, so that's going to be t plus 1. Now for this, if we use the formula of distance, speed, time, the triangle, now what we want to try and do is try and get some form of simultaneous equation. So here we can see what's the same on both the car and the lorry. Well, that's the distance. So here if I work out the distance, that's going to be speed times time. So that's going to be 240 equals t times x, or tx. And then if we do the same for the lorry, that's going to be 240 equals x minus 12 t plus 1. And again, that's distance equals speed times time. Now what we want to try and do is just get one letter. So here I'm going to rearrange this formula here to make one of the letters the subject. So here let's make x the subject, so x is going to equal 240 over t. Now with this, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to substitute this into the expression. So here I've got 240 equals, I'm not going to write x, instead I'm going to write 240t minus 12 and t plus 1. Now from here, what I then want to do is I want to expand the brackets. So here what I'm going to end up with is 240 equals, and then if I do this times this, and then I'm going to get 240. Then if I do this times this, I get 240 over t times 1, which is just 240 over t. Then if I do minus 12 times t, I get minus 12t, and minus 12 times positive 1 gives me minus 12. Now you might be thinking to yourself, this looks like a complete auto mess. What am I actually going to do with any of this? So let's have a look at what we do. So here we've got 240 equals, now 240 take away 12 is going to give me 228, and then plus 240 over t minus 12t. Now at this stage, what I'll then want to do is try and get rid of this. If I take that over to the other side, then what I end up with is 12 equals 240 over t minus 12t. Now at this stage, what you then want to do is multiply everything by t. So 12 times t gives me 12t. 240 divided by t times t, so if I just write times t, then what I'm going to end up with is just 240, and minus 12t times t is going to give me minus 12t squared. Now hopefully what you can slowly spot is that this is now going to slowly look like a quadratic equation. So if I take this right hand side over to the other side to make my t squared positive, I get 12t squared plus 12t minus 240, and that equals 0. Now to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to divide everything by 12. So I get t squared plus t minus 20 equals 0. I can then factorize this, equals 0, and which then I've got plus 5 minus 4. So from this I get t equals minus 5 or positive 4. Now because t is time, we can't have negative time, so it can't equal this, so therefore t must equal 4. Now we've not finished the question because the question asks us to work out the average speed of the car, which is x. So then from this, what we've then got to do is work out what x is. So x equals 240 over t, which is 4, and 240 divided by 4 equals 60. And there is my final answer.